Good. It's 8:15. Good morning and welcome again to the hybrid Power BI session. My name is Wolfgang. As you may have noticed, I'm not native American. I'm coming from Austria. I'm living in Austria. I'm working in Austria in a small company called Cubido. We are doing BI consultancy and we are doing Power BI projects. And we are doing hybrid Power BI projects. So that's the reason why I'm here. And what I would like to do in the next 60 minutes or so is to tell you something about hybrid Power BI, what it is, what I think the majority of people think about hybrid Power BI. And I would like to show you some other ways how you can think of building a hybrid Power BI infrastructure. So just in the beginning, a little bit of questions for you. Who is new to Power BI? Okay, some of you. Who of you is new to hybrid Power BI? Okay, good. So I would like to start with a short architecture overview for those of you that are new to Power BI. The other ones, just skip the next 3 to 4 minutes where I will explain the Power BI overview, the architecture. I think the slides will be available for download. If not, my contact details are at one of the last slides. Just send me an email, ping me on Twitter, and you get the slides afterwards. What you see on that slide is the Power BI architecture. On the left upper side, I just switched to that one to see it a little bit better. We have data. Data is the thing we want to analyze. Data is the thing we want to prepare and integrate and where we want to find some insights out of it. So Power BI supports hundreds of data sources. So we have built-in data sources, we can build custom connectors, and that is the main reason why there is Power BI, data we want to analyze. And the first step we need to do when working with Power BI, we need to build a model. So we need to build a data model, and that data model is built with the tool which is called Power BI Desktop. Power BI Desktop has one part of technology in it which is called Power Query to integrate data from different sources, transform the data, and afterwards build a data model with the language called DAX. DAX, Data Analytics Expressions, is a thing where you can build your measures, you can build your summary, you can build your average, you can build your measures you need to analyze in your data model. And what you need to do afterwards is you can build your reports. You can build your Power BI reports, including charts, including slices, including filters and everything. And when your report and your data model is done, you want to share it. You want to collaborate with your colleagues. And that is the reason why there is the Power BI service. PowerBI.com, it's a cloud service. It's the portal where you can do the collaboration for Power BI. So we take the created Power BI data set and report and publish it to the Power BI service. And then you can consume it on different devices, a notebook, a tablet, or even a smartphone. There's a native app for Power BI. And the data sources, more and more of the data sources are moving into the cloud, but there are also some data sources that are on premises. That is your organization's data, that is stored on your servers, that is stored on your servers in your data center, and that are living on premises. And that is the main reason why there is the need of connecting those on-premises data sources to the Power BI service, which is running in the cloud. And the Power BI gateways, the on-premises data gateway, is the connector. That is the thing that provides the connection between on-premises data sources and the cloud. So, hybrid Power BI, why is there the need? Yeah, as I already said, we have existing data sources. We have our data warehouse running in our data center. And maybe we have some regulatorily regulations. We are not allowed to move the data into the cloud. I'm living in Austria, European Union. There is some kind of fear of moving data into the cloud and storing it somewhere in the cloud where I don't really know where it is stored. And data is leaving the country, or think about healthcare data, or what else. So there are different reasons why there is the need of having the data stored locally, but having a great tool for analyzing and sharing it, so PowerBI.com. So we need to build a hybrid infrastructure. And yeah, I already mentioned it. Some of us, some customers of us, they are afraid of moving the data into the cloud. They don't want to give the data outside of the company. They don't want to store it elsewhere. Although it's encrypted, although it's secure and whatever, they are afraid of moving into the cloud. So the question is, why not? So why not move to the cloud? Why not build a hybrid infrastructure? And for me, hybrid Power BI is more than just installing the gateway and providing a connection to our local data sources. For me, it's taking the best approaches from the cloud, the data that is living on premises, or the tools that are already there and running on premises, and combine them and use the best parts of every side of the story. And that is the story I would like to show you in the next 50 minutes or so. What else can be done in a hybrid Power BI environment? So there are different paths to getting to a hybrid Power BI infrastructure. The first one, and that is most people think of it, it's the hybrid story using the gateway. So we are storing our data on premises. We have databases. We have files. We have other systems that are running on premises. And we have Power BI in the cloud. So we have some sort of separation. And what we need is a connection. And that connection, I already mentioned it, I don't know how many times, the gateway. That is a service you can download from the Power BI site, and that one provides the connection for accessing on-premises data. And the thing is, the on-premises data gateway, some years ago, there was a thing called the personal gateway. There was another thing that was called the enterprise, or the other gateway. And there were two different installers and whatever, so it was a kind of weird story and not consistent. And now there is one gateway to provide access to many different systems. As we are here at the Microsoft Business Application Summit, and the Power Platform is a thing, the gateway that is used by Power BI is the same gateway that can be used and provide access to on-premises data sources for Power Apps, for Logic Apps, for Flow. So there's only one on-premises data gateway you need to install, and that you can use for Power BI, Power Apps, Flow, Logic Apps, and Azure Analysis Services. So it's one part you have to install, and you get the connection to your on-premises sources. There's another thing. In the beginning, many of our customers said, "Hooah, there's a service that connects to the cloud," or maybe there's a thing that is coming from the outside to my data. The on-premises data gateway is a service you install on one of your servers, and the gateway itself opens the connection to the outside. There's never, ever opened a connection from the outside. Every time the gateway opens the connection, and it's only an outbound connection from your servers. So it's no fear of getting some way a visit from the external somewhere else. The connection itself can be encrypted, so HTTPS, by, I think it was is the June update, HTTPS is now enabled by default. So we are moving to a secure connection environment. So how do you get the data gateway? As I said, you can download it from the Power BI site. And the installation is quite simple. You just download the file, and then you have a next, 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 or an additional next. I don't know. So 4 or 5 dialogues, which are quite simple. The first part is a thing you should read through it, because there are 2 flavors of the gateway. There's the personal gateway, and there's the enterprise gateway. And the personal gateway, yeah, as its name applies, it's for your use. It's your personal gateway. And the enterprise one is the thing that you should install when you're working in an enterprise environment, because you have more configuration options with the enterprise gateway, and you can also access the data sources that are lying or stored on different servers. So you install the enterprise gateway on one server, and you define data sources that are connecting to your other sources. In addition, the enterprise gateway, you can build a so-called data on-premises gateway cluster. So you can build a cluster of gateway instances that are running on multiple machines, and you can distribute the requests that are coming from the cloud to the different cluster nodes. And initially, it was planned as a failover. So there were 2 instances of the gateway running, and if the one went down, requests were sent or rerouted to the other one. And now you can implement or mark a checkbox that the requests are distributed to the different. So we have a sort of round-robin distribution for the requests. So think about it, personal versus enterprise gateway, and there's one thing that is really important. It's here. As I said, the gateway can be used by different systems, only the enterprise gateway. The personal gateway only allows access or provides access for Power BI. So if you are planning to implement Power Apps and Flow and all the other stuff, you need to install the enterprise gateway. What else do you need? It's your Power BI user. It's the email address you're signing into Power BI, because the gateway itself needs to log in to the Power BI in the cloud, and there needs to be a connection there. And then the gateway is up and running. And that's it for the gateway installation. But there's more. It's divided into 2 parts. We have the gateway installation, and we need to do some configuration to configure data sources, to configure access to our source systems and everything like that. So just switch to the first demo. And what we have here is, I've already installed the on-premises data gateway. Sorry for that. So where is it? Here. And the installation is the first step in our story. So we have the gateway here itself, and you have some configuration options in there. So you can restart the gateway service. You can change the service user the gateway is running, and you can add some additional logging. So by default, the logging is, not that much, but you can switch that flag, and you can give or start the gateway service to really provide more insights into the things that are happening behind the scenes. What you can also do, you can test the network ports if there are connection problems. So you install the gateway, but you can't connect to the outside. So you can do some port testing, and that one, it is enabled by default. The HTTPS, now with the June update of the gateway, it is enabled by default. And for those of you that are using custom connectors, that is the path that you have to specify, or where you have to store your custom connectors there. There's also a thing, as we are used to Power BI is a quite agile and fast-moving releasing project. Also, the gateway itself gets updates every month. So have a look at the Power BI blog to read about the news that are coming. So almost every month there are some enhancements getting into the product. So what I already did is I installed it and configured it with my email address. So what we could do now is I've prepared a Power BI project report that is using Direct Connect. For those of you that are new to Power BI, there are two connection modes. The one is the import mode that reads the data and stores the data in the Power BI report, the data set. And the direct query, the live query mode, is connecting to the data source and fetching the data and reading it by every request you are performing with your report. So I've provided here a report, which is a direct query. And as you can see here, when I do a refresh, nothing changes. But what I can do is I can add some additional customers. So I moved from 8,000 to 13,000 customers, and the second one should appear now. So direct connection to our data source. I'm going to publish that report to the Power BI service because now we are working in Power BI Desktop, and what we need to show, or what we need to see is we need to render that report in the Power BI service to really get the hybrid feeling. And it's already published, but I just override it there. And the architecture we are now using is the Power BI report is rendered in the cloud. The data source is living on my virtual machine. And I've also installed a gateway. So we've got the report. We need to configure the gateway to access the data source. So the report is published. Switch here and open the report. And what we see here, it's a little bit hidden over there. The report has a problem getting the data because I installed the gateway, but the gateway doesn't know what are the data sources it should provide to the service. So I've now the job to do is I need to configure the gateway connection for my data set. So I'm here now in the data set options, and I've got here the different gateways. And let's see why it's not working. Okay. And now I'm here at the gateway overview. So I've some gateways installed, as you can see here. And I've 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 installed, and 3 of them are not working. If you see some exclamation mark or some hints in there, there's the hint of giving Power BI the information, okay, there's a problem with the gateway. Power BI on the user interface, it calls it gateway cluster. As I said, you can configure or install more instances of your gateway, and they are combined into clusters. By default, if you install the gateway the first time, it creates a cluster with the name you named the gateway itself. And what we need to do now is we've got the gateway, and we need to add a data source. Because the gateway itself, it doesn't know really what to do, and we need to add a data source. And data sources can be, so that one is the SQL source, can be of a different type. So the list of supported data sources by the gateway is getting longer every month. So they are adding additional services they are supporting. And what I would like to configure here is a SQL Server configuration. You maybe have seen it here. You can also provide access to a file on one of your servers. So for example, if you have a Power BI report that gets the data out of a CSV file or an Excel file, you can also provide a data source that is specific configured to get the access to that file, living or stored on a file share somewhere in your network. But today, it's SQL Server time. And what you need here is the information, which I've got here somewhere. Sorry for that. Yeah, I need that one. So, in order that I don't have to type that much. So I need to enter the name of the server. I need to enter the name of the database where my data is living. And then I need to provide user credentials. Those are the user credentials that are used whenever there's a request coming from the cloud to the on-premises data gateway to access the data source. So I've got a SQL Server user here, and that's it. Just add it. And what we need to do in the next step. So we've configured the gateway, we've configured the data source, and there are two levels of user security settings or permissions you can set. There's the way of setting administrators at the gateway level. So you can set administrators. What are the users that are allowed to configure data sources? And on the data source level, you configure users of that data source. Those are the users that are allowed to create reports based on that data source. So not directly the users that are consuming the reports afterwards. So that are the users that are allowed to create reports. So, and let's try it again. Let's see, I think it's not working, that's not good. Yeah. What I did, I created a data source, but now I have to configure the data set to use the gateway itself. So I specify it here and hit the apply button. So let's go back to the report. And here we are. Now we have the Power BI report running in powerbi.com, connecting to the local database. And as you can see, it's working. And let's do the other way. I set some customers to disable, and I do a refresh here, and data is directly fetched using the gateway. So it's quite easy when you know what to do. In the first parts or in the first projects, the customers assume, okay, the gateway is installed, it should work. But there are some additional steps. You need to configure and create the data source, and sometimes you have to add the users that are allowed to work with it. So that's for it at the moment. So that are the things you need to do. We need to do the configuration of the cluster, administrators, and then we need to add the data source configuration. Good. As I already mentioned, we have two different ways of getting the data into our Power BI report. So we have the import and the direct connection. And the report I showed you was a direct query. And there are other types, like the import one, where we need to define a scheduled refresh. So that is the thing to get the data up to date. And that part also uses the data gateway, and it's quite the same as with direct query to just configure the scheduled refresh to fetch the data out of the source system. There's one thing I forgot. When I configured the data source, I entered the server name, I entered the database name, and I selected the gateway in my database or in my data set configuration. There is some magic in there because the Power BI service needs to know what is the data source he should use. And what it does a matching with the server name and the database name. Within the report, the data source we've provided there, and the gateway data source we have there. So be aware, if you are starting your report connecting to a SQL server, for example, using the IP address, and configuring your data source in the gateway using the server name, they are not finding the right way. So that is a thing that is not available to do a manual mapping in there. Currently, it's really the matching of the server name and the database name. So that is a thing we encountered during one of our projects. No connection using the data gateway. Just be aware. And also, if you're using the full qualified name or just the server name. I think that one is fixed now. In the beginning, there was a problem if you had the server name or the full qualified on the other way. There are some different kinds of architectures. So how you can build your hybrid architecture. If you're using direct query, the gateway, and the data source, and whatever. That one is a free ebook. The link is in the slides. You can download that ebook from there. And there's a chapter dedicated to different architectures around the Power BI environment. And there's also a chapter that is dealing with the gateway stuff. Be aware, it's has been published 2016, so many months in between, but the concepts are the same. So just have a look at that ebook. And now for the administrator. We've configured our data gateway. Sometimes there are bigger organizations. Sometimes there are many gateways in the organizations. And sometimes there are gateways, even the administrators do not know that they exist. So what are the ways of getting some sort of overview about the gateway infrastructure in your environment? And there are two different ways that you can use. The first one is the Power BI gateway team provides us with PowerShell modules that you can use to query the metadata, to query the list of gateways that are configured. And I will also provide a link for the download of the samples. And just have a look what you need to do. You need to move to the directory of the gateway, and we need to install the gateway module. And then we need to log in into the environment. So what you need here is a user that is, in the best case, an administrator that has, let's say, Power BI service, the Power BI service administrator role. And yeah, we are connected to the environment. And what we can do now is we can list the configured or existing database clusters. And what we get back is a JSON list. And as you can see, there are, I would assume, 5 gateways in there. And we get some more information about the gateways itself. So who is the contact, who is the main contact of the gateway? What is the, what is the version of the gateway? What is the status? Because a gateway, as we've seen in the user interface, a gateway can be installed, but it can be non-functional. It can be outdated. It can be in a state that it's not working anymore. And we can query the information for a specific gateway using the PowerShell. And as you can see, there's one gateway that is running, but that needs an upgrade. So you can query all the gateways in your environment and fetch the status out of it. So that one needs an update, and that one is the same but formatted in another way. So that is one thing you can do or you can use to get the metadata out of it. And there's another way of getting an overview. The Power Platform, as I said, the gateways are the connection to your source systems. And there is the Power Platform Admin Center. Who has seen it before? 5. So that one is quite new, but it's getting more and more powerful. And what we have now in there is a data gateways section. And when we get there, we get the list of gateways within our tenant. And we get the list of gateways that are there, and we get the list of administrators. Who is the administrator? Who is the contact info? And what is more interesting is the personal gateways. What we see in our customer projects, in the environments, personal gateways are just growing. Yeah, just install it, we have it, we have it, we have it. And when you switch to that list, normally in a normal organizational environment, that list is quite long. Because, yeah, I just tried, install it on my laptop, and I've got a connection to my Excel file that is on my server. So that is a quite handy way to get a list or information what you can do. What you can also do is you can manage the administrators, because sometimes the gateways are installed, but yeah, the assigned administrator left the organization or whatever, so you can just switch and add administrators using that overview. So quite a good way to get more information about your gateway environment.
Do you think having personal gateways installed in big companies, I mean big enterprise, could be a risk for data leaks or something?
The question was if there is the risk of losing data with the installation of personal gateways in bigger companies. I would say yes, yeah, but it really depends. If you have no security applied, as we saw yesterday in the Power BI keynote with the advanced data protection, just export the data or send the Excel file. So it's another way of getting the data out. So it's a thing. What I see a little bit better in the context of the personal gateway is you have to log into the Power BI. In the Power BI com service, so there's a login required, and if you don't, if you are leaving the company, you are, yeah, leaving and you're not having access anymore. But there's a risk, yeah, and it would be nice if there is an option to just do not allow to install the personal gateways, but I'm not aware of that. Yeah. The question was SharePoint as a data source. Why do I need a gateway? If you have SharePoint running in your data center and you've installed it there. But it's not in our data center, it's in your data center. Pardon? It's cloud.
Oh, no, you don't need it. If SharePoint online, you don't need a gateway.
Yeah. If it's not SharePoint installed locally, if it's SharePoint in the cloud, I think they changed. In the beginning, there was some sort of requirement of a gateway for every data source, yeah? But now they moved it, and if it's SharePoint Online, I think you don't need a gateway. And there's another thing. The commandlets that are provided by the gateway team, it's somehow a little bit limited what you can do. So you can list the gateways, and that's it. But with brand new May, the Power BI team gave us a try command within the documentation of the Power BI REST API. And that one is really, really great, because when you just go to the documentation site, let's see, now it's hidden here. And I'm now dealing with the gateway operations that are provided by the REST APIs. And what I would like to do now is I would like to list the gateways. And that green button does the magic. Because when I started it, it requires me to log into my Power BI environment. I need to enter my credentials. And sometimes it takes some time. But what is really handy here, you can execute the actions directly in the browser window. So now we have a nicely formatted way of JSON. And that is just one method that is provided by the REST API. And if we go back, let's see, we can do also an update data source. So there are more functions provided by the REST API compared to the PowerShell. And that one is really a nice way of getting used to the API. And it's, in the documentation available since May. So just try it out. It's really nice to get a start into the documentation and the possibilities. What I added to the slides are some things you have to think about. Maybe you don't know how to size the gateway server, how many gigabytes of RAM, how many gigabytes of hard disk and everything. Maybe you need to monitor the gateway. Maybe you need to restart the gateway service and everything like that. So I provided some links in there. And maybe you need some additional logging. There's the thing you can mark the checkbox in the dialog, but there are also some tweaks that you can use and change the configuration file of the gateway. And also, brand new, it came with the May update. The Power BI Gateway team provides us with a performance monitoring Power BI report template. So there are two things you have to do, to be specific, 4. Go to the website where the announcements of the Power BI Gateway are listed. There you find the information where to download the template file, the report. Third, you need to edit the configuration file of the gateway, that there are additional files written to your hard disk. And fourth, you need to wait for 5 to 10 minutes that there are some data rows written to that files. And then you hit refresh and you get the performance information in a Power BI dashboard. So that one is really handy because you get a data set on the right side with the information, how many resources have been used by the gateway, have there been data errors or whatever, and you can use the predefined reports that are coming from the team, or you just extend the existing reports. So we have an overview, and as you can see here, we have different types of queries. We have the direct query or a scheduled refresh that has requested the actions. So it's really a nice way and an easy way to get some more insights, because in the beginning it wasn't that easy to monitor the gateway. You had some system monitor counters, performance counters, but now you get it directly out of the product. And with the June update that was released, I think on Monday, we got some more tweaks in that logging thing. So expect more information to come within the next month. That was, hybrid Power BI as the majority of people think. But now I have three additional steps how we can build a hybrid Power BI environment. And who of you has not heard about SQL Server reporting services? Okay, everybody knows what they do. Reporting services are there for another kind of reports. Power BI, those are the self-service, I want to dig into my data interactive reports, but the paginated reports, how they are called, those are the reports where we get our invoices. Those are the reports that need to be pixel perfect. Those are the reports that need to be exported in a PDF, sent every Monday at 8 o'clock in the morning to different people in our company. And reporting services are there for a long, long time. So they were introduced with SQL Server, I don't know, 15 years ago, something like this. And we can do a connection, because Power BI dashboards are a great way to have an overview or get an overview about our information. And sometimes we have information lying in paginated reports. And what you can do with reporting services, you can define a connection to the Power BI service. And that connection provides you with the action to grab a piece that is stored or rendered in your paginated report and pin that piece to a Power BI dashboard. So first step is Report Server Configuration Manager. Sign in with your Power BI credentials so that you have the connection in the background. And then we have a paginated report. No comments on the layout, please. So it's just a sample report. And what you get here is a small icon, the Power BI icon. And if you click on that, the first thing is you need to log in into Power BI. I've done that, and I didn't take a screenshot for that. But then you can select a chart on your report or from your report, and you can pin that chart onto a dashboard. And you can also define an update frequency. So there are hourly, daily, or weekly updates. And what it does behind the scenes, it actually takes a screenshot, stores that image, and pushes it to the dataset. So it's no real interactivity. It's just taking a screenshot and pushing that image to the dashboard. What it does in the background, for technical note, it creates a SQL Server agent job that does the magic. So it's actually everything created in the background. And what you get as a result, it looks like that. So that part is a pinned chart, or that pinned chart from our example report. And every time the update frequency information is hit again, new data is rendered, screenshot is taken and stored in the dashboard. So,
sorry, what kind of permissions you need to have when you do the connection on the Power BI report server? Do you need to be Power BI administrator for the tenant?
okay, the question was what permissions are required for creating the connection between the report server and the Power BI, and to be honest, I don't know. I have to look it up, because it's what you do in the report server configuration is just to give the report server the hint what is your tenant. And the first part when we are doing the connection is press that button, and then there's the login screen. So every user has to log in, because we need to know what is the dashboard where it should pin it to. Yeah. So there's the configuration in the background, and I think you don't really need to be administrator, but I will look it up and update the slides. It's an interesting question. You don't need to be. Okay.
Yeah, they did that because it could be a personal workspace versus, different workspaces are not that used to working from
Well,
there.
when you enable the option on the settings, there is one.
Well, you got to enable that in your Power BI report server.
Yes, but that's my question.
Yeah.
What kind of permissions you need in that step?
You got to be able to set this up.
I will look that up, because it's an interesting question. I don't know now, but you will get the answer, and I will publish it to social media. Yep. So that is one part where you can use reporting services and pin parts out of it. And there's another part, like reporting services are now available in PowerBI.com. Paginated reports are there. And yesterday, the team announced that functionality general availability. And it's a really cool feature, because now you can have your pixel perfect, your paginated reports in the Power BI environment, but big but on that side, it's premium only. But Chris Finlan, the PM, yesterday in his session, talked about it. They are planning, thinking of bringing that functionality into Pro, for Pro users. But what they need is customer need. And that is a thing for you. Please take a picture of that slide, go to that URL, and just add your votes there. Because the more votes we get, the faster we get it to Pro. And then we have paginated reports in PowerBI.com. So that is a thing the team is aware of, but they need our help to get some satisfaction. And what is also there, if you have some special requirements in that area for paginated reports in your Pro environment, the team is really waiting for your feedback. So if you have any things, if you don't know direct contact, just contact me and I will arrange some directions into that. So paginated reports in the cloud, that is also a thing. The next thing we can do is bringing Power BI reports from the cloud to our on-premises environment. So that is another part of doing hybrid, because why not only bring data into the cloud? I would like to have the best functionality I have for analytics or interactive reports for my local data and maybe installed in my local data. So the answer for that is the Power BI report server. And the Power BI report server is a quite new product, and it's a product that is based on existing functionality. So it's SQL Server reporting services plus the functionality of rendering Power BI reports. And the plus of that one is you install the Power BI report server in your environment, in your data center. And that is one of the killer features for many of our customers, because they already have reporting services. They have the required licenses, and then they say, okay, we would like to have Power BI, but we do not want to invest the Pro licenses, and the function set is enough in the Power BI report server, because it's Power BI report server. Be aware, Power BI reports are in there. There are no dashboards, there is no Q&A, there are other features that are not there, but it has Power BI reports. And Power BI reports itself, they are powerful. So you can have your Power BI reports in there. Yeah? What is the oldest version of SQL Server reporting services to enable the connection, the pinning to Power BI? I think it is 2016. Yeah, I think it was introduced at that time, and the older versions do not work with that. So the Power BI report server, gives us the functionality of rendering Power BI reports. And Power BI, the service itself, it's a fast-moving thing. Every 2, 3, 4 weeks, we get new features in the service. Every month, we get a new Power BI desktop. For the Power BI report server, we get updates 3 times a year, because nobody, I've seen no administrator that would be happy, hey, you get another install every month. So they are moving to a little bit slower cadence, and which has some things you have to think about, because Power BI gets new features in the cloud every month. And the Power BI report server is released 3 times a year. So there are some features that are not there for the Power BI report server that are already there in the Power BI service. And those features in the Power BI service can be in preview state for a long time. And you get too used to it because, it's there for, I don't know, half a year, and it's not getting into the Power BI report server. There's a policy. Every feature that gets the GA mark, so that is done from a product perspective, gets into one of the next releases of the report server. There are no preview features that are in the report server thing. So that is a thing you have to be aware. Another thing is there is a optimized version of Power BI Desktop for the report server, because there are features that are not supported. So there is a optimized version of Power BI Desktop for the, for example, January 2019 release of Power BI Report Server. There's an optimized version for the May release. And that is a thing you have to get used to. In the beginning, the icon was the same. In the beginning, every time I took the wrong one. Now, we have in the title slide Power BI Desktop and May 2019. So it's more clear. And also they introduced a black icon. So we have a different kind of feeling. So it's getting better. But when you install the next version of your Power BI report server, you have to install the server plus the new version of Power BI Desktop optimized for Power BI report server, May 2019. So be aware. It sounds much more complex than it really is. And the workflow is the same. You build your data model in Power BI Desktop for report server, but you do not publish your report. You save it on the report server. So that's the difference. You don't publish it to the report server. You go to the file, save, and then you specify the report server itself. Just a quick look at the report server itself. That is the web portal of the report server. We have different kinds of report types in there. We have Power BI reports, we have paginated reports in there, and we have those color little tiles in the upper area. Those are the KPIs. So you can provide some sort of KPI indicators in there to give some sort of feeling, yeah, how are my sales data? Is it okay? Is it not that good? And provide some information in there. And there's another part of the story, mobile reports. Microsoft acquired the product and the company DataSen some years ago, and that was a good deal for mobile reports because they introduced the concept, which is now available in Power BI, of designing a report for the web, for your normal page, and then you can define a phone layout. So you can just pick the visuals you need, and you can define a phone layout. And what is also there in the Power BI report server, it's Excel workbooks. So Microsoft said, okay, there are 4 types of reports: paginated reports, interactive reports, there is Excel, and there are mobile reports. So those are the 4 parts of the story. And okay, it's not working, sorry for that. What you can do here is you can upload Excel files, and you can actually, it's like the Excel online feeling. You can just do the interactive analysis in there. What we have here is an example Power BI report, and you have the functionality. Like we know, you can do the drill down, you can do the interactive filtering, you can do storytelling using bookmarks and whatever. So it's the same feeling like you are using Power BI in the cloud, but it's running locally. And that is a major plus for many of our customers. And the other reports, that one is a paginated report that doesn't need to look like a table, and on page 21 you have the total sum. It can be, colorful. It's not that interactivity you know from the Power BI side, but you have parameters, and that is the paginated report. The 4th thing that is there for the hybrid is Excel and Power BI. As I said in the beginning, just use the best tools and technologies you know and combine them. And what you can do is you can use Excel to analyze the data that is stored in a Power BI dataset. Who of you has not heard about Analyze in Excel? Anybody seen it? Okay. So what you can do, just go to the Power BI website, and what you can do here is you can do the Analyze in Excel. And what it does, it downloads a connection string to the data set, to the Power BI data set. What we need to do now is enable, and we have the data model on the right side. We have the measures that are defined in the Power BI dataset. We have the dimensions, and what we can do now is we can do some analysis based on that data model. And that is a big part because it's the single version of the truth. It's the data model you define. It's the part where you define your measures, and it's really a nice way. And what we see is the interactive, colorful, image-based data analysis Power BI is nice, but there are some departments like controlling, finance. They want their dollars, they want their cents in there. They want those pivot tables. And that is a great way of getting a centralized data model and reuse it. So there's Analyze in Excel. So you start in Power BI and Analyze in Excel. But what you can also do is you can do it like we've seen with the report server. You can grab a piece of Excel and pin it to a dashboard. So what we can do is I just select that one, and there's an add-in for Excel. It's the Power BI Publisher for Excel. That one is free. Just download it, and with that part, you can select it here, and now we have a pin option, and you can pin that part to a Power BI dashboard. And let's move back to the dashboard. And here we are. Be aware, it's not interactive. It's the same concept. It's a screenshot taken. And there's one thing that is not that good compared with the reporting server, because here you have to do the update within Excel. So you have to do the update. It's your work you have to do on that side. So you can pin Excel items to a dashboard. You can do the Analyze in Excel, and you can do the Analyze in Excel based on data sets or reports. As you may know, you can create report-based measures. So there can be a difference in the data model. And then you have your pivot tables you can use to analyze. And now, the last 2 minutes, costs and licensing. Yeah, everything sounds nice. I want to have it in my customer projects, but sometimes we do not have the required licenses, because for using on-premises data sources, we have the free and the pro license in Power BI, and it doesn't matter if you are on free or pro. You can access the on-premises data sources. There's one thing, it's in the last line over there. Analyze in Excel requires a pro license. So if you want to connect to your data set in Power BI, you need a pro license. The Power BI report server, yeah, there are 2 ways of getting it. Maybe you have Power BI Premium, then you are allowed to install Power BI report server in your environment. Or you have SQL Server Enterprise Edition with software assurance. Important, with software assurance. And then you are allowed to install Power BI report server. And that is the main path where our customers are now using Power BI report server. They have SQL Server license, they have enterprise licenses, and now we are migrating to Power BI report server to get new version of SQL Server reporting services plus Power BI reports. And for the Excel thing, reporting services, yeah, here it is, SQL Server 2016 plus, so that is the first version where it was introduced. If you have reporting services, you do not require to have Power BI report server that this functionality is available. The RDL in Power BI, yeah, is premium for now, but do not forget the ideas site to vote it up, that we get it fast. And Excel, the Power BI publisher for Excel, it's free. Analyzing Excel requires the Pro license. So for the hybrid story, there are different ways. Choose your ways. It's not there is one way, just getting hybrid connections to your local data, but there are different ways. If you want to connect or use on-premises data in Power BI, the cloud service, use and install and configure the on-premises data gateway. If you use Power Apps, if you use Flow, it's the same gateway. If you want to bring Power BI reports to your on-premises infrastructure, to your data center, to your report server, install the Power BI report server. And if you want to connect on-premises with Power BI, so we have the data model in the cloud, we want to get some pieces of our reports into our Power BI dashboards, use the reporting services and Excel integration. So, with that, thanks for your attention. Thanks for your questions. If there are any questions, I'm here. I just wanted to move down from the podium to give the next speaker the place. But thank you for coming. Thank you for being here that early in the morning. And there's one tradition. I need you, because I've got the tradition of taking a selfie after my session. And with that room, it's not that easy. So I have to take at minimum 2 or 3 pictures. But maybe you can raise your hands. And maybe if you don't want to be on the picture, maybe you're looking for something on the floor. I don't know. But I will try to get that part, and that. I do it in 3 parts. So here we are. Can I say some hands, please? Thank you. And the middle part. So coming to that side. Thank you very much. If there are any questions, if you need the slides, just contact me. Enjoy the rest of the day.